solar radiation management, geoengineering? Yes. Well, according to the fifth assessment report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, chemtrails don't exist. And even though that they don't exist and they're not spraying the sky, they also say that in order to stop global warming, we absolutely mustn't stop doing it.
Another example is the array of technologies, often referred to collectively as geoengineering, that potentially could help reverse the warming effects of global climate change. One that has gained my personal attention is stratospheric aerosol injection, or SAI, a method of seeding the stratosphere with particles that can help reflect the sun's heat in much the same way that volcanic eruptions do.
The evidence now from the examination by biologists and scientists around the world is that the aluminum level in the lakes and streams and trees is increasing enormously. Some areas have incredible elevations of aluminum in the groundwater and in the vegetation. So if this indeed is happening, we're looking at a medical catastrophe that's worldwide.
We shall propose a global system of satellites for weather control.
If you have a covert operation, a cover for that operation will be provided. That's the nature of a covert operation. All of the evidence indicates that it is very much a covert operation of the greatest scale that has ever been exercised on this planet and really in the history of humanity as far as I know. Literally the atmosphere of the planet has been altered, and it's a deliberate alteration of the atmosphere.
This is a global operation, and it affects everybody and every living thing.
Chemtrails go from horizon to horizon, and they spread, and they crisscross, and they go next to one another, and pretty soon the whole sky is cloudy. And we don't know who's doing it. We don't know what it is they're putting into the sky. We think it's aluminum, borium, and strontium, but we don't know for sure. No one talks. They can't do that in the sky above us without the provincial and the federal government being aware.
My name is Dietrich Klinghardt. I am a doctor. I studied in Freiburg and wrote my dissertation on the autonomous nervous system. My main activity in the U.S., for what I am known, is my clinic that is specialized for detoxification. People from all over the world come to us with chronic diseases, and we have found that the fallout from the chemtrails is the most significant reason for the poisoning of the people and leads to a whole set of chronic diseases.
Introduction of massive amounts of pollution into your atmosphere without your consent and without proper disclosure. Is that acceptable to you? Is that acceptable to your children?
Solar radiation management methods, which you could also call sunlight reflection methods, seek to reduce the amount of climate change by reflecting some of the sun's warming rays back to space. Preliminary research suggests that we could rapidly and relatively cheaply put tiny particles high in the stratosphere
I welcome you here in the EU Parliament as a representative of the European Green Party, in my case as a representative of the German Green Party. With nuclear energy, with GM food, with geoengineering, they hope to save this planet. I think it always depends on an active civil society to reveal these things, to collect information, to warn of the dangers, to force governments to deal with this in honesty. And this experiment that has already been started, it is not that we only talk about research. Rather, it is already in use. The sky here is already being treated in a certain way. And therefore I'm very glad that you are all here to deal with those impacts, with the consequences of geoengineering, with climate control, and with the prospect of handling climate change with geoengineering, that they could reduce the CO2 concentration, or that they could stop the acidification of the oceans. And at the same time, there is also a military interest in the technology. I believe that it will become possible in the next 50 or 100 years to control the weather and climate artificially.
In conjunction with Harvard scientists, they've come up with a new project to pollute the entire planet. It's called SCOPEX, and it means Stratospheric Controlled Perturbation Experiment. SCOPEX, S-C-O-P-E-X, SCOPEX. Now, in this experiment, they take calcium carbonate and they release it into the atmosphere to block the sun. And this is supposed to stop global warming by blocking the sun. Basically, it's mimicking a massive volcanic eruption. Now, I don't know if you've read anything about the history of volcanoes, but there was a volcanic eruption, I think it was in the late 1700s or maybe the early 1800s, that caused so much dust to enter the atmosphere that it caused food crop failures for 2 years. Okay, I think it was even recorded as like the summer without a sun. Because if you put all this ash into the atmosphere, you kill the food crops and you cause famines. You cause the collapse of civilization. This is what Bill Gates is working on now. Again, it's called SCOPEX. Now, here's something else very interesting that you can only get right here from the independent media. Turns out, you know, I run a heavy metals laboratory. I do a lot of research there. I release results all the time. Well, we've actually tested dozens of calcium carbonate products. Calcium supplements in bulk form, powder form, capsule form, and so on. Turns out that calcium is a natural attractor of lead, a toxic heavy metal. It causes lowered IQs, by the way. It causes brain damage and reproductive damage and cancer, all kinds of things. We have found, I think on average, between 2 and about 8 parts per million of lead in all the calcium carbonate we've ever tested. Sort of cheap, low-grade, mined out of the ground, calcium carbonate minerals. This means that this Bill Gates project would be emitting not just calcium carbonate into the air, but lead. So he would be polluting the skies with lead chemtrails. So it's not just the aluminum and the barium and everything else that you're probably already familiar with. We are talking lead, calcium, chemtrail. Now, what would the effects be of this? Well, number one, of course, you're going to have lead falling on all the croplands everywhere around the world because it's going to eventually drop out of the sky. So you're going to have lead contamination of the entire global food supply. And remember, one of the big side effects of lead ingestion is lowered IQs. So this is not only a way to dim the sun, it's a way to dumb down the population through global lead poisoning that simply could not be avoided unless you grow food in a greenhouse, which is extraordinarily expensive. This would drop lead on the rivers, the oceans, lakes, and ponds. So there would be enhanced lead contamination of all the fish and seafood that you eat as well. At the same time, the calcium carbonate falling out of the sky would alter the alkalinity of the soils that it falls on. So now we're raising the pH of soils, which would deprive nutrients to plant roots, because plants need some acidity in order to be able to assimilate nutrients. If you start messing with the pH of soils by raising the pH, what you do is you cause plants to absorb fewer nutrients and minerals. You cause many plants to be unable to produce as much food or as much medicine if they're herbal plants and so on. Basically, you're killing off the plant-based ecosystem of the planet. And at the same time as that, pay attention, this is astonishing. You're dimming the sun. So you're shutting off photosynthesis or shutting it down. Photosynthesis is what plants use to generate energy. Without photosynthesis, you have no food crops. You have no food web. Every mammal on the planet, which includes you and I, would die. And you can't escape it because, of course, you're breathing the same air. Everybody's sharing the same atmosphere. If it's falling out of the sky all over the planet, it's going to fall on your lawn, your food crops, your garden, your local farm. It's going to fall on grass that's eaten by cows that are dairy cows. So it's going to be in the milk that you buy at the grocery store if you're drinking milk. It's going to be in everything. Again, shut down photosynthesis by dimming the sun, alter the alkalinity of the soils to reduce nutrient uptake by plants, add lead to everything to lower IQs and dumb down human population, while you're also collapsing the global food supply. And I'm trying to say this with kind of a calm, scientific voice. I probably should be screaming at the top of my lungs here, because this is the suicide plan for humanity. It's part of it. There are actually multiple layers to this plan. They're at war with the sun. They think the sun is bad and they want to dim the sun. They're also at war with carbon dioxide. They say it's bad, right? And they say they have to get rid of it because, well, they say carbon is a pollutant. Well, guess what? You're made of carbon. We're all made of carbon. And plants use carbon for this purpose. So understand, I'm really trying to drive this home with you, that number one, chemtrails are real. The chemtrails are going to be altered to now release lead, a toxic heavy metal, along with calcium carbonate. This is being run by Harvard scientists. It's already funded by Bill Gates. Again, the name of this is Stratospheric Controlled Perturbation Experiment, SCOPEX. They're going to be doing a pilot study right away with a few $1 million worth of flights, airplanes loaded with this toxic dust that they're going to release. And if that's successful, if they get enough money to do this, and that money will come from, George Soros and Bill Gates and who knows who else, they're going to do this to the entire planet. So people everywhere, people in third world countries who can barely get by because they can't grow enough food to feed themselves, they're going to starve to death and die. And that's part of the plan. That is part of the plan of the globalists. But it's not going to end with the third world starvation and mass death. It's going to also include you in the United States or wherever you're watching this. You have been slated for termination. You have been deemed a useless eater by the globalists. They want to eliminate you, and they have a means to do it, and they're running the experiments right now. And then they're saying you're crazy if you believe in chemtrails, while they're running chemtrails experiments to kill all life as we know it on this planet. Think about that. That's how insane reality has become. So when Alex says we're at war with these globalists, understand, the globalists are at war with humanity. They literally want you dead, en masse. They want billions of us to be dead. And they are rolling out a program to accomplish that. And they're going to survive in their underground caves for a period of time and then, they think, reemerge back onto the planet with everybody else gone. That's their plan.